Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo-O. Super stoked. Friday, December 10th, 2021. Your Generation X minister to get you up in the morning and get you in the Word. That's right, Generation X. Man, what happened to us? Anyway, hey, I took out my old dictionary. Remember these? They're called dictionaries. I don't know if you remember these, but I looked up a couple words just to describe our chapter today, this morning, in Genesis. Chapter 30. We're already in chapter 30. It's pretty radical. And excited to get in there with you all. Thank you so much for joining in the Morning Devo, getting the Word, and enjoy some time in the Bible together. You can always check out the archives at my YouTube channel, Bo Willette, and there we are live streaming when I'm here at the home office. We can live stream there from YouTube, and I also put up use YouTube as kind of my archive station. And so it's fun if you want to learn the Bible, kind of learn kind of the chapters and kind of get a good overview of the flow of the Bible. Man, we're in a good spot. Genesis, really early on. We're kind of in this narrative of Jacob and his life. And he loved a woman, and he had to work for her, so to speak, in a real way. And here you see kind of the mishmash of functionality in a family. There's a lot of themes that are being kind of portrayed in different character qualities of individuals in these narratives. Jacob is a conniver. His mom is a conniver. His brother Laban is a conniver. And we get to chapter 30, and we're kind of at the height of the dysfunction. Hence why I got the dictionary out. And so we'll get there. But it says, when Rachel saw that she wasn't having any children for Jacob, so Jacob loved Rachel and worked 7 years for her. And then Rachel's dad actually played really weird hardball and gave Jacob another of his daughters to be Jacob's wife. And back then, you kind of didn't have many choices. You kind of had to go with what was happening. And Jacob ends up with a couple wives. And Rachel and Rachel's sister. Now, can you imagine this situation, right? Being married to two sisters, and or if you're female, married to two brothers, right? Now it says when Rachel saw that she wasn't having any children for Jacob, she became jealous of her sister. Now I'm going to break out this dictionary and just read the jealous. It says, fearful that a person one loves may love someone else or prefer someone else. So jealousy can be defined as a emotion of fear. So jealousy is an emotion of fear. Okay, it can be described that way. That's one of its definitions. So it's something that's a fear-based emotion in us, that a person one loves, someone I love, right, loves someone else or prefers someone else. And then I have this fear reaction of being jealous. And so Rachel sees that she wasn't having any children, she wasn't bearing any offspring, the importance, the value of children, such an important message today in our world as well. And she becomes jealous of her sister. She pleaded with Jacob, give me children or I'll die. Isn't it amazing? Sometimes we seek to find the answers to our desperate desires from the hands of other people that potentially can't help us in our plight. I think we've all done that. I think we all do that. Where maybe instead of seeking God or learning to trust God and wait on the Lord. There's such a stress in the worship songs of the Bible, which is the Psalms. There's a real stress on waiting on the Lord. But it's really easy to kind of, look at humans and go, hey, why aren't you doing what you should be doing? I don't know if you've ever had that attitude. Where you've kind of looked to human beings and you've criticized them as if they have the answer for you. And she says this to Jacob. Wow, talk about pressure for Jacob right in the family. Give me children or I'll die. That's the desperation. Notice this jealousy, this fear emotion that was in her. Man, it was something through desperation in her life. She wanted children so bad. And of course, there was a stigma that went with women who did not have children, that were barren of the day. And so Jacob becomes furious with Rachel. Am I God? He asked. Is there one? He's the one who has kept you from having children. Hey, what, you think it's a problem with me? There ain't no problem with me. I've already had kids because we know Rachel's sister has already had children from Jacob. So Jacob gives her a quick kind of rebuke, right? This correction that, hey, am I God? Am I the one who can control this? Absolutely not. God's the one who's kept this from you. You get mad at God. Wow, what a correction. Ooh, right? Pointing people back to, hey, God has a purpose and a plan. God's got something in this. Sometimes our anger is not so much at other people, but it's just anger at what God has allowed in our life. The story of Job. We'll get there one day. We'll get there on the Devos, maybe the different lessons in the book of Job. But it's a good book to read about that, where a guy gets everything he has taken away from him. And is he going to blame God? Is he going to get upset at God? Is God really worthy of worship when everything's not going your way? What a question. Is God really worthy of your worship, of your worth, your value, when things aren't going your way? And then the question always comes back and says, well, if God is not worthy of your worship because things aren't going your way, what does that really make you? And what does that really make God in your eyes? He's more like a vending machine, right? He's not giving you what you have put into it. He's not giving you what you want. You put in a quarter and you expect a candy bar, and that's how a lot of people's relationship with God is like if God doesn't give them the candy bar, they're out. And so but that says something about us. That says something about our relationship with God, right? What if I loved my kids that way? My kids didn't give me everything I wanted, and I value happiness and my self-happiness so much that if I'm not happy all the time with my kids, then something's wrong with my kids, not me. Sound a little bit like our culture? Yes. Breeds this kind of attitude of God being this vending machine. People are there just to appease your life and make you happy, as you see fit to be happy, as you think, happiness should come to you. Well, you become a selfish person. And maybe that's what's happened in our world, is we have become just super selfish. And so we are super sad, but we try to live this way in this yuck. Anyway, Rachel told him, hey, take my maid Bilhah and sleep with her. She will bear children for me. And though I can have a family too, and says, and though through her I can have a family too. So Bilhah became pregnant and presented with him a son, Rachel named Dan. For she said, God has vindicated me. He has heard my request and given me a son. Bilhah became pregnant again and gave Jacob a second son. Rachel named him Naphtali. For she said, I have struggled hard with my sister, and I am winning. Wow. This is crazy. Now, I want you to also look at another word that I pulled out, and this one's called envy out of the dictionary. Envy is discontent or ill will at another's good fortune. Discontent, or you have ill will at another's good fortune because one wishes it had been his or hers. So you see something good happen to someone, you become envious because you wish, because it's an emotion of discontentment. You are not content and you want something and you see someone else get it, and so now you're envious at them, right? So you might have that ill will towards them because you wish you had what they had. A discontentment in our life. You know, have you ever done any writing on why you're discontented? What it is? You know, that might be a good thing to write about and really think through. Now, you could see how maddening this family is, right? I mean, here the women are going, yo, maid, sleep with my man and bear some children. And, pretty radical, right? I mean, gosh, man, if this was a movie, this would be pretty intense, for sure. Here you have Rachel's sister becoming pregnant. Rachel can't get pregnant. Rachel's maid is given over to the husband. The maid gets pregnant twice. Rachel's super stoked. Ha ha, see what's going, look at my children through my maid. We're getting some kids. This is how the world is, by the way. It's kind of a small little picture of the world, how we fight one another and wage war on one another through companies going at one another, everybody trying to win over on one another, trying to be better than everybody. And didn't that make sense? That's how everything is. Everything's so competitive, right? And there's a competitive nature to this world the way it is. This interesting world. Now, maybe, I don't think there's so much something wrong with being competitive per se, but it seems like there's definitely something wrong in us as humans that take the competitive nature and we twist it and we use it towards ill will towards other people. And so our competition becomes really a way to hurt people, a way to get over on other people. And so sometimes I ask God, hey God, what am I doing the things I'm doing to try to win over other people, to try to be better than them, in the sense of this selfish kind of better? Am I envious of them? So that's what's the motivation of me trying to do better. What's really going on with me here? Here you see it, all these emotions, this yuck, this jealousy, this envy, all coming out, right? These women are fighting one another, and who is the greatest, who has more children, which kind of this progeny promised a future, money, success, these kind of things. How much value are we placing in all of what we have? Very interesting. It says, meanwhile, Leah realized that she wasn't getting pregnant anymore, so she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Now notice how people see what other people do and they end up doing the same thing. This is what Jesus called the blind leading the blind. Will not both fall into the ditch? Well, yes. Rebecca is Laban. Now these ladies, these girls these women that we're reading about, their father was Laban. Laban was a trickster. Rebecca was a trickster. Rebecca was married to Isaac. They had a child, Jacob. Jacob was a trickster. Where did he get it from? Probably got it from his mom, seeing his mom, the way his mom act, right? See, it's amazing how we can tear down our families and tear down our homes in ways that seem so subtle, but yet they are wrecking every crevice of the foundation of the home. They are taking it down, And these character qualities just continue. And this is really this is a real small story of us in our lives and how we learn from all of our families and we gain these things, and that we don't know that as we continue on in the madness, we tear down love, right? Instead of loving, love does not seek its own. That's what the Bible says about love. Was Rachel seeking her own? Was Leah seeking her own? Love does not seek its own. And yet we see all that taking place here, that it is about self-seeking. There's not really much mention of God here. It's just a lot of emotion going on, people riding on emotion. And we learn that from people. What has been your emotional life like in the family? And what has your kids picked up on? And what are they now like because of me and because of you? That's some hard lessons. Yeah, our kids are going to be like us. And they're going to see our emotions and how we react in emotional living. And they might just become just like us, emotional and riding off emotion. So instead of living on faith, they're living on what? Fear, jealousy, envy, these kind of things. You'll read that part of Jesus where he says, hey, the blind's leading the blind. Paula, that's in the New Testament, of course, where Jesus says that. But he's just talking about how, we follow one another. And it's easy for us to follow the ways of dysfunction that other people are living in. And that's why it's good to kind of turn off a lot of stuff, really shut off a lot of the continual rhetoric in our world, because we end up being like them. We end up hating like people. We say, hey, we don't like the way they hate, but we end up hating just like them. That's how many activism worlds are people are like, that are in activism. But that's sometimes how it works. So, hey, sorry about the music. Thanks for telling me, Tamara, so I could turn it down, man. Sometimes I forget about it because I just don't hear it. So thank you. So, you can see just how we can follow one another and how it really leads to a lot of destruction. So God, help us not follow one another so much. Help us to follow who? Who do we want to follow? We want to follow Jesus. That's who we want to follow. So isn't that cool? If we're looking at Jesus and we're fixing our eyes on Jesus and we're kind of thinking of what Jesus does and how to walk like Christ, he's the great example for us. And so that's what we really want to do. Hey, no problem, Tamara. Thanks for letting me know. It says, so here we see Zilpah being given over to Jacob as well. And notice Jacob, he just keeps going this route. Isn't that crazy? Maybe typical guyish, right? Just keeps going this route. It just, man, it's unfortunate, right, that Jacob continues in this way. Jesus Urbina, Miss Paula, Miss Tamara, it is in Exodus 34:14 where God says he is a jealous God. That's good, and that's always a good thing to look up, is that God's jealousy is a little different from should I say a lot different than our jealousy. So our jealousy, because we're fallen individuals, we tend to really have a tweaked emotion of jealousy that is resulted out of selfishness. God doesn't work that way. His jealousy is not out of selfishness. It stems from his holiness and his glory. So there's a good way to have jealousy if you're a holy being, right? And that is you want to protect, want to love, want the best in someone, right? You have a godly jealousy for your children. You want to protect them. You want them the best for them. Oh, that's beautiful. That can be a very pure kind of jealousy. But a lot of our jealousy, especially the ones we see in this chapter, are filled with distortions, filled from fear, rooted in fear, a discontentment, things like that. So anyway, so Leah named him Gad. Leah has this son through Zilpah, the other maid, and Gad is his name. How fortunate I am. Then Zilpah gave Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher, for she said, "What joy is mine! Now the other woman will celebrate with me." One day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrakes growing in a field and brought them to his mother. So now we see the kids growing a little bit. Okay, they're around this atmosphere, they're in this dysfunction, they're in people that aren't seeking the Lord, people that are just jacked. I mean, in many ways in our heart, just like us in many ways, there's a lot of things in us, right? And they're not seeing things too clearly. And it says here, Reuben, one of the sons, right, one of the firstborns here, mandrakes growing in the field, and brought them to his mother. And Rachel begged Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But Leah angrily replied, "Wasn't it enough that you stole my husband? Now will you steal my son's mandrakes too?" Wow. Just over a piece of fruit. Just over, food. Now, you see how resentment has built up in this family? What has been, living in Leah's mind? Leah, it says, was not loved like Rachel was loved by Jacob. So Leah wasn't really loved that much. But he definitely had intimacy with her and bore kids with her. But he didn't love her that much, it sounds like. And it says Leah, had this, what was she resentful at? And what was Rachel resentful at? And do you see these resentments just building up? And that now there's a piece of fruit. And when the piece of fruit, when this piece of fruit is the subject of the argument, it seems kind of lame, don't it? But it's not really the issue. There's other things that are going on. There's so much jealousy and envy, and there's hate and anger going on, right? And it's not just these ladies' fault. It's a lack of leadership with Laban. It's a lack of leadership with Jacob that has put these women in these situations, and they have a role to play as well. But look at what Jacob and Laban have done. They haven't been good leaders at all as well. They've been conniving and not honest, and it's just continued down the road, right? And it definitely takes two to tango, and man, there's a lot of tangoing going on right now. So here, Leah angrily replies, "Wasn't it enough you stole my husband?" Now we're getting to the deal here. Now you want to steal my son's fruit too? Well, no, she just asked if she could have some. But when you have resentment in your heart, everything is a violent act, right? When you have resentment in your heart, and it doesn't matter what a person says to you, if you're resentful towards them, if you have resentment in your heart at that person, whatever they say to you, it's an affront to you because you have resentment in your heart towards them. They could say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And you'll find that offensive because you have resentment in your heart towards them. Wow. Man, this is a counselor's nightmare probably to get with this family. It says, "So that evening as Jacob was coming home from the fields, Leah went out to meet him." You must come and sleep with me tonight, she said. Oh man, how sad. I have paid for you with some mandrakes that my son found. So that night she slept with Leah. Isn't this interesting? There was some kind of payment. Did she give the mandrakes over to Rachel and say, "Hey, I'll give you these mandrakes, but you got to let me sleep with Jacob tonight." Man. Woo. Right? Oh, this is crazy. Manipulation, using people, right? Using Jacob, not because she loved Jacob, but she just wanted more offspring. She wanted to be the one who was in control. She wanted to have all the babies so she could be the powerful one, so she can be seen as the mighty one. Wow. And God answered Leah's prayers. Yeah, God answered her prayers. She asked prayers, can I have more kids? And guess what? God answered that prayer. God answers our prayers sometimes in the most remarkable ways, even in our madness. God can answer our prayer. Now, God's got a plan with all this, and we will see how it develops. Remember, Jesus is from this line. He's going to be from this family. We're going to see which one, but he's going to come from one of these kids from these offsprings. Now she names him Issachar, for she said, God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband as my wife. Then Leah became pregnant again and gave birth to a sixth son for Jacob. She named him Zebulun, for she said, God has given me good reward. Now my husband will treat me with respect, for I have given him 6 sons. Later she gave birth to a daughter and named him Dinah. And God remembered Rachel's plight and answered her prayers by enabling her to have children. Remember, she was the one that was not loved. The one that was not loved gets all the children. The offspring comes from the one that is somehow rejected. How many of us have been rejected? How many of us have, found that the world, maybe something, people didn't treat you right, and yet you found that there is a God who loves you and who cares for you and has given you, in a sense, life and life abundantly, an offspring, of abundant life. And isn't that how God does? He comes to the one who is not loved, and he lifts that person up. Man, how precious is that? So awesome. So awesome is God and his grace to take down the one who is brokenhearted and trodden upon and give them, amazing, amazing life. And so God does this. And then it says she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. It says then God remembered Rachel's plight and answered her prayers by enabling her to have children. Wow, she's going to have a child. And she becomes pregnant and gave birth to a son. She became pregnant, and then it says she said, God has removed my disgrace, she said, because she was childless. And she named him Joseph, for she said, may the Lord add yet another son to my family. Soon after Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, please remember me so I can go home to my country. Let me take my wives and children, for I have earned them by serving you, and let me be on my way. You certainly know how hard I have worked for you. All this time Jacob has been working for the wives' father. Now please listen to me, Laban replied. I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. Tell me how much I owe you. Whatever it is, I'll pay you. And Jacob replied, you know how hard I've worked for you, and how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You had little indeed before I came, but your wealth has increased enormously. The Lord has blessed you through everything I've done, but now what about me? When can I start providing for my own family? Laban was blessed by the hard work of Jacob. Are people blessed by my hard work? I hope so. "What wages do you want?" Laban asked, and Jacob replied, "Don't give me anything, just do one thing." Now you can read the rest of this, and it's a very interesting kind of narrative. And we're going to see that Jacob once again has kind of him and Laban, two swindlers, if you will, two tricksters going at it toe to toe. And you kind of see how this kind of develops. But Jacob's going to be going away, finally leaving Laban, taking his family, going back to the promised land, the land of promise, the land that his family now is from, the land of Israel. And so that's where Jacob needs to go back to and make the travels back there. All the while, there's so many other things going on in his family's life. He has a brother that hates him named Esau. He has 2 wives. He has 2 maids. He's had intimacy with everybody. Everybody's had a lot of kids. And boy, God is still with them all. Isn't that amazing? God is with them. So God is with you too. God is with me. And even in our most down times, even in the most dysfunctional times, you know, it's amazing when we lift up our prayers to God, how God's with us. You know, He's with us, and He hears us. And remember that today, that we are not perfect. We have a lot of things, a lot of emotions, a lot of motivations that aren't the best. But we have an amazing God who loves us and cares for us and will help us see us through our world into the land of promise as well. And so we look forward to that time. So you guys take care, okay? Have a great one. Genesis 30 in the books. And have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.